Hey, everybody, this is Brett Ingram, and this is the optYOUmize podcast, the show that helps entrepreneurs build their dream business and dream life. Today, we're talking with Ben Albert, owner of Balbert Marketing and curator of the Real Business Connections Network, where he hosts 5 podcasts. I'm super excited about this because I love marketing and podcasting, and I love the impact that they can really have for entrepreneurs. So, with that, welcome, Ben, and thanks a lot for joining us.
Excited to be here, Brett. This is going to be fun. Been looking forward to it.
Yeah, me too. Me too. Look, I know that you're going to have a lot of great stuff to share with us, and I certainly have a lot of questions that I want to ask you. But I have to start off with your background. I know that you're crushing it now, but I also know that it wasn't always that way. So, can you share with us your journey from where you started to where you are now?
How long do we have?
Hey,
it's,
it's all good. It's all great, man. So, how about it?
I'll start at COVID. And if we want to go deep and really unravel some rabbit holes, like mom had a neurological disorder, dad was an alcoholic, my superpower was invisibility. I was hiding in the corner, like would play small, wanted to be a basketball player, had a jersey every single day of the week, but would play small and was the smallest kid in school. So I never lived up to be the next Michael Jordan. And there's a whole rabbit hole of childhood, but that's a big part of where I think the growth mindset came from. At a very
Mhm.
young age, I didn't fit in. So I, at a very, very young age, just wanted to learn how to fit in, how to talk to girls, how to be more charismatic. Like I was just a lost soul trying to figure it out in a crazy world. And I really got interested in reading at a young age, YouTube University. And then I started listening to podcasts in 2014, which is by now 10 years ago. And I had
Yeah.
started a music podcast in 2016 because I was a big music fan and I wanted to highlight local creatives and musicians. So that's part of the backstory. But then when COVID hit, I was a sales executive for a marketing firm. I had just started at this company in this role. So last one in, first one out. I got let go early on in the pandemic. And then, like anybody, like I didn't have Bezos or Elon Musk or Brene Brown or Oprah on my wall. Like I didn't think I was going to be an entrepreneur. Like that was not my vision. I just became an accidental entrepreneur because I didn't have a job. And Music Ben with the music podcast was kind of non essential. There was no live music. I was a party animal at the time, had kind of followed in my father's footsteps with a little bit too much drinking. I was non essential, at home, broke, unemployed. So then Music Ben had to become Business Ben. I pivoted from a music podcast to a business podcast. Started using the podcast to meet and learn from brilliant people, just like you do here, learn something new every single day. Was able to build an audience while I learned. Like I wasn't some business expert, but I built an audience as I learned. And now it's like you got to pinch yourself because this was almost 4 years ago. And I'm a full time entrepreneur, I'm a full time marketer, and we specialize in a lot of the marketing for podcasters, not because I came up with this niche. It's just because that's what I've been doing since 2016. So it's funny, and I'll stop here, but all these things prepared us, like the failures, the loving music, the loving editing, the getting into a music podcast and never making a dime on it, the learning these loving podcasts and learning like different new things every single day. When I got let go, I thought the world was against me, but what I didn't realize is I had been preparing my whole life for that accidental opportunity to be an accidental entrepreneur. And I guess that's my story so far, and we're sticking to it.
It's awesome. I love that perspective that you touched on. The fact that we're sort of always in progress towards something, because it's amazing how, especially in the world of entrepreneurship, in the moment, when something doesn't go the way that we want, it can feel like it's a failure. We can feel like we weren't able to reach our goals or whatever else. But it it is always at least a learning experience. And oftentimes it is something that will build to something more. You know, the funny thing is, my journey to podcasting is different but the same. So with 17 years as an entrepreneur and sort of doing it by myself, behind the computer, so to speak, I had a lot of colleagues in the business, but we didn't spend a lot of time together. So it's kind of lonely and it's difficult, and there are a lot of times of frustration. And what I realized when I started to reflect is, geez, I would have learned a lot faster and probably got to where I wanted to be a lot quicker if I had spent more time connecting with other people and learning. You also mentioned on a podcast, when you talk with somebody else, you do an interview or you have a guest on, you learn so much from that. So it's great for an audience because an audience can benefit from everybody's perspective. But at the same time, as a host, I find it fascinating. I love to hear people's stories, and I learn stuff all the time, and it definitely makes me better at what I do. So I think that there's a lot of wisdom in the idea that even if as an entrepreneur we're not where we want to be right now, that doesn't mean we failed. It just means that we're in progress to what we're trying to get to. We might not even know what that is yet,
Mm.
but eventually all that preparation, all the work we've done is going to give us an opportunity for it to culminate. And for you, you saw that opportunity when you ended up losing another opportunity, which sometimes is the grand irony of it all. Um,
Yeah.
but I think that's awesome. So
Can I
if
make one
someone
little
who's,
observation? It's on my
yeah,
mind,
go
Brett.
for it.
I didn't mean to interrupt you, but
No,
one of my favorite direct messages of all time is someone messaged me, in 45 minutes of your podcast, I learned more about my CEO than 15 years working with him. And it could be a
amazing.
podcast, it could be a blog, it could be putting on events. If you create something and invite people to your table, you'll get a seat at the table. When there's employees that work at a company for 15, 20, 50, maybe not 50 years, but their whole career, and they still don't even know their boss intimately, and you and I get to bring on
Yeah.
brilliant people. It's I almost feel like drunk with power sometimes because you bring on brilliant people and you get to learn from them intimately. And a lot of these human beings charge a lot for their time, so it's I'm a huge advocate for podcasting simply for the free education aspect, not even for like being like a success story overnight or being rich and famous, simply for the education aspect. It's I love what we get to do, man.
Yeah, and the other part of that, of course, is that as you mentioned, it's sort of intimate in the sense that you're having a conversation. So you might have tons of friends on Facebook or followers somewhere, but the quality of those relationships is not the same. When you spend 30 minutes talking with somebody about meaningful stuff, you get to know them in a way, right? You develop more of a relationship. All the people that I've interviewed in the course of doing this, I remember them. It wasn't just a fleeting conversation where, oh, we said hi to each other in the lobby at an event or something, shook hands and traded business cards. There's a real connection there. And I think that's really important because the depth of relationships is super important. And I think nowadays in particular, since we've gone so digital with everything, the emphasis on developing real relationships is actually greater than ever, not less. Because even though we're more, technically connected, in a lot of ways we're more disconnected and isolated. So building those relationships is really valuable. And I think important, just also for psychological health, to be able to connect with other people and do that kind of thing. So if someone who's listening out there is feeling a bit down and out, maybe they're going through the middle of a struggle themselves, what advice would you give them about what they should do at this particular point?
The way you described it, I don't even know if they need tangible, actionable advice yet. They're feeling down and out. It's more just like holding space for yourself, or find a friend, a mentor, a therapist, someone who can hold space for you, just to take a deep breath and realize I'm enough. I'm good enough now and I'm only getting better. All these failures and struggles are preparing me for who I am and who I get to become. I like to say all the time, you can be and become simultaneously. You can be successful, you can be driven, you can be smart, and still become more successful, more driven, and more smart. So we can get into tangible, but it sounds like if they feel like they're lost, they're in a dark place, if they're currently struggling, there's actually a high probability that they're not. A mentor of mine, Steve Sims, he jokes all the time, your worst day is someone else's wet dream. Your worst day is someone else's wet dream. Why are we on some sob story? We have so much opportunity. Once we
Yeah.
get over that mindset, it's just putting together a 15-minute goal. Like, why are we upset? Is it because we're in bad shape? 15 minutes to put on shoes and go for a run, or 15 minutes to cook a meal that isn't bad for me. If we want to grow our business, 15 minutes making phone calls, DMs, rating a social media post. We don't have to. Now, granted, we're going to achieve crazy good stuff if we do 15 minutes incrementally for 3, 5, 10 years. But it's first, you're good enough now. Like, honestly, like, I don't want to shame anybody, but like it sounds like a big sob story. Like someone down the road is trying to feed their family in a third world country, spending hours
Mhm.
a day in pain, and you're over here crying because you had a bad day. Again, not I am that person. So this isn't me judging. This is me literally just like coaching myself. Um, what 15 minutes can I do right now to make myself feel better? You'll get a dopamine hit because you'll give yourself evidence that you actually do what you say you're going to do. You're going to enjoy the progress you're making, and then incrementally you'll get better as you continue to add different things. And we can go as tangible as you want, but in my heart, Brett, I was thinking like they don't really even need advice. They just need to like not be so hard on themselves a lot of the time.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. And I think the other thing that's really important for everybody to recognize, is other people have been there, right? So part of the problem, I think, with sort of the psychological crisis that's going on is that everywhere you look, because we live in such a visually media driven world, you see images of success and images of people living their dreams or at least appearing to, and all that stuff. But even in the instances, first of all, a lot of stuff is image, so it isn't necessarily reality anyway. But even for the people that have reached the mountaintop, and they feel amazing about their lives, they're living their best lives and all that. Most often, if you pull back the curtain, you will find that there were struggles that were embedded in that journey. And so if we're somebody who's in a dark place right now, recognize that a lot of other people that you might look up to, a lot of other people that you might emulate or wish you were like, were probably there too at one point or another. And it's the idea that, okay, you can acknowledge that you don't feel good right now, but then it comes down to what are you going to do about it? And if you start to take steps to do something about it, you'll find that, quicker than not, you'll be able to start to dig yourself out of that. And as you sort of alluded to, I think sort of the motion creates emotion. You start to move around, you start to do stuff, all of a sudden you start to feel better also because you do get that dopamine hit and you do get your body chemistry changes. So it definitely will help in that regard. So I like that advice totally, even though it isn't like a specific thing to do. I think it's spot on. So if somebody wants to start a business, right, or they want to grow their current business, so um, how can they start using the power of marketing in their business? A lot of people think, all right, if I want to promote my business, I got to start buying ads, right? But are there other ways to be able to really use marketing and promote your business without just investing a ton of money in advertising?
Yeah, I always say to take a step back from the super tangible, be an advocate for others. That's part of why your podcast is good. You're a good podcast host. Your podcast is good. If we advocate for others and we're not just like, I'm the greatest on earth, let's get online with a megaphone and yell about how cool I am. I tell people advocate for others. Now, there's a ton of social media platforms out there, and sometimes I feel like they're less and less social. It feels like a billboard to me. Everybody just putting up their stuff. It's a social media platform for a reason. So there's direct messaging for a reason. There's commenting for a reason. So someone might say, I don't have a huge marketing budget. I mean, does depend on what industry they're in, but let's assume that connecting with a lot of people is beneficial. And there's hundreds of thousands in their area, and then there's millions in their state, and then billions. Like there's a lot of people out there. You can go online, and we can talk about posting. Like I do recommend you post once a week so people see that you're like an active personal brand or an active business, an active person there. But I spend less and less time. I used to spend all this time in like creating this perfect image of Ben. Now I like hardly ever post, and I spend all my time interacting on other people's posts. So I'll see Brett post something, I'll leave a comment, and if I really like feel like bonus points, I'll send Brett a direct message about that comment, and then I'll open a conversation. You touched on this a moment ago. Relationships have never been more important because everyone can access an AI automation tool. Everyone can access good quality SaaS products. Everybody seems to tell you that they have the best thing since sliced bread, but it's the people that can actually quickly build a relationship and find instant rapport that get the attention of partners, buyers, collaborators, referral partners. So I would get online, and we could do a whole masterclass on this. You need to know who your audience is and where they hang out. So if we haven't done that, we can talk about that. But let's assume you know who your audience is, where they hang out. Post on that platform enough to be relevant, but actually be the person loving on other people. Comment on other posts, reply to comments, send direct messages, start conversations. And I always say, have something completely free or a very light lift to give them without them having to do any work. Hey, come on my podcast. Hey, here's a free research paper of 10,000 industry professionals. Hey, here's a free copy of my book. Hey, come speak at one of my events. Hey, I have a paid mastermind. Come be a guest one week. So I could make a connection through adding value. I start a conversation. Then I have something I can offer them that's free and is actually value beneficial. So it's not a waste of their time. Like it's worth a ton of money to them. And then you're creating a whole center of gravity around you as a personal brand or a business where at what point in this conversation have I said even talk about what you do? They're going
Yeah.
to ask. They're going to research. And if they have a need or they know someone with a need, you're going to be the one that fills that hole because they know, like, and trust you because you loved on them. So this is not typical advice, but it's literally like stop worrying about marketing yourself, be an advocate for others, and then you'll attract people to yourself.
Yeah, it's really brilliant advice. And I have to say, Um, I think so many people spend so much time, as you said, trying to perfect an image of what they are, when in reality, we're better off right from jump to be authentic and who we are, because that's going to attract the right kind of people. My theory, and I don't have any statistical data on this, but my theory on the social media, superstars and influencers that are have tragically done terrible things to themselves or suffered really bad fates,
Yeah.
is because of the fact that if it's an image, if it's a persona, that gets exhausting to keep up. You might be able to build a massive following, but if it's all phony, it's exhausting because it drains you out of energy when you're pretending to be something that you're not, or you feel as though you need to always present yourself in a certain way. When you're you, when you're in your own skin, you're comfortable with that, people will like you for who you are. There's an audience for everybody. There's a tribe for everybody. And when you get to know those people, they'll like you for who you are. You don't need to pretend to be something that you're not. But I love the idea of sort of the giving mentality. That's all, often the way that I've heard it put is, oh, give first and then worry. But it doesn't ring true for people. The way that you put it, I think, is so powerful because when you are interacting on everybody else's stuff, you don't need to push your stuff on them because they're going to ask you. So they're going to pull it to them when they realize you're providing value for them and being of service to them. So I love that approach. If we can dive a little deeper on the audience thing,
Sure.
is there advice that you have for somebody if they're saying, okay, well, I'm on board, like I like the idea and I really want to sort of connect with other people, but I'm not really sure who my audience is. How can I determine that? Do you have advice around that?
The easiest advice. So it's difficult. I like to be a doctor, a surgeon, where I try not to assess a need without doing X-rays, MRIs, and understanding what I'm going into. So this is going to be general advice, but one, you can ask them, and two, you do competitor research. Where there's smoke, there's fire. Where there's money, there's cash registers. Where there's success, there's more success. You touched on something that's nuanced that people need to be aware of. Just because someone looks successful doesn't mean that they are, doesn't mean that they're happy. I can go rent a Lamborghini for a couple grand, hire a videographer and a photographer for a few $100s, maybe a couple grand for the day, and film a year worth of look how rich Ben is content. I've got a gold looking watch right now. It's a gorgeous watch. It was $300. It's not like some $20,000 watch, but I can go film that crap in one day and pretend to be successful. So do your best to peer under the hood. And ultimately, one, your current audience, literally ask them, what do you want to see more of? What are you struggling with? Here's a poll. Here's a giveaway. Fill out this form and win X, Y, and Z. Win an Amazon gift card for filling out this form. So part one is just poll and ask if someone sends you a direct message, say, hey, why did you reach out? Ask your current audience, then find a competitor or a lookalike person. Peer under the hood. Don't just assume that since they talk a big game, like Brett's an example. So I only start. I'm being transparent. Like I was handing out flyers in high school, so I was always kind of entrepreneurial. But I started my first legitimate business in 2020. And when people ask me how to start a business, I can give them like a couple of tips. Like you just Google how to start an LLC, but I'm not a huge expert on that. Now, I'm not even saying you maybe are specifically an expert on that, but you've been an entrepreneur 17 plus years. I would want to work with someone and learn with someone who's been an entrepreneur 17 plus years, not someone who's 17 years old. No ageism against it. It's just there's a different level of experience. So I'll wrap it up here. You you talk to your current audience, and then you find a lookalike person. You see what they're doing, and you mimic it. If anything, you could even hire them to help you mimic it. But one thing that's nuanced is you got to bring your fingerprint to the table. I can copy Brett all day, but I'm not Brett. So you can still learn from someone and learn from what they're doing, but you still got to bring your authentic self to the table. And the last little bit here is you might be wrong. You might launch something and it doesn't work, so have the humility to continue working at it and try again.
I like that. I like that last bit of advice, especially too, because I know, and I forget what the statistic is, but I think it's like when an airplane takes off, it's off course like 90% of the time on its way to its destination. It's the same kind of idea. As an entrepreneur, it's very rarely a straight, narrow path that just goes one step after another. It's quite often very jagged with a lot of ups and downs. And sometimes the place we end up isn't even the place we initially envisioned. But through the process of doing it, we make adjustments, we make adaptations. And one of the things that's really important to be as an entrepreneur is obviously have the perseverance, but also have the wherewithal and acuity to look at what is happening and make adjustments. So we're always moving toward the target that we want to hit and not just, blindly going in whatever direction we tend to be going. So I believe in the importance of networking. Obviously, I mean, we've touched on that. And in fact, when I look back at my career, I believe it's one of my biggest mistakes. I don't think I networked nearly enough early on. And part of it, I think, is when it came to in person stuff, I felt a little bit awkward or a little weird about it because I sort of felt in the back of my mind there would be something for me to gain at some point. So it's kind of weird. And part of it is just my personality. So even though I can be really outgoing, I never considered myself a great networker. Do you have advice for people who struggle with networking?
Yeah, this is a tough one because everyone thinks I'm a good networker, and I built like my community and my business around it. I think I'm trash at it in person. Um, the biggest advice is like, first off, you're never good at anything on day one. And really, like, it depends. Are you introverted or extroverted? Do you want to network on social media or do you want to network in person? Do you want to create something? For example, create a podcast, create your own networking events, create a blog, create a book and ask people for quotes and help write chapters. Do you want to create something? Or are you better at lots of quick interactions and meeting a bunch of people? If other than my big beautiful beard, if I was better looking, more charismatic, more charming, more outgoing, like I need a lot of time to decompress. I'm not good at meeting 60 people in a day. Handshake, smile, compliment. I get burnt out. I don't want to compliment any more people. I'm tired. But if I was good at that, I would meet as many people as possible. So the general advice is know thyself. The advice for introverts we already talked on, be an advocate for others. You don't have to go around with this complicated plan that you're going to meet 100 people. You know who you can help, why you're there. We already talked on having something free, cheap, that's super valuable that people want. And you want to build a network and make introductions. So when I meet Brett, when I meet Mark, when I meet Sally, I'm thinking, who can I introduce them to? How can I help them with something free or cheap? How can I listen? I'm very strategic and I try to connect the dots the best I can. If I'm extroverted, that's still good advice. But I honestly think if I'm extroverted, getting all tactical and logical and having this complicated list will actually just slow me down. If I'm extroverted, do what I do best. Make people feel good. They're not even going to remember what you do or what you said or that you had all. They're just going to remember how you made them feel. So if you can make people feel good, if you love being around people, use that to your advantage. And that's the advice. Take your skills and use them to your advantage, but also don't shame yourself or tell yourself, oh, I'm not good at that. You might actually be better at things than you. I don't like public speaking that much. That's why I started a podcast because I'm in a safe space. And I started public speaking literally to literally like almost like I don't know if it's sadistic, but I never liked it. I was so shy when I was a kid that I'm like I'm going to do this just because to like prove to myself I can, and I'm going to enjoy the heck out of the pain. I still might never be a Tony Robbins or Brene Brown level speaker, but through the therapy of doing it, even though I feel like I shouldn't, it makes me better at so many different areas of life. So, yes, do what you're good at, but also get uncomfortable.
I like the get uncomfortable thing because the other thing that it does when we push ourselves is not only do we get better at what we're doing, but we build up our own internal confidence and resilience. Because at that point, we start to realize, hey, I might be better at this than I thought I was. Maybe I was being a little bit too hard on myself. So, what other things might I actually be able to do too that I was afraid to try? And so it definitely expands our abilities and expands our sphere of influence and everything else when we look at it that way. So, from a networking perspective, what about online? Do the same rules apply online? I mean, I know you were talking a little bit about it before. So, if I'm not at in-person events, but I'm still want to be able to build a network, you recommend doing the same kind of things?
Yeah, if anything, even be. I'm on LinkedIn a lot. It's just I could go on some sob stories, but the amount of pitch slap direct message sales pitches I get is unreasonable. And I'm assuming it must work maybe at a 0.01% hit rate. It must
Mm.
work enough. Like they must scam enough people that it's worth it. But to me, it's like playing with freaking fire with your brand to be pitch slapping everyone you meet. Like all the stuff you do in person. Be a listener, be kind, be aware, add value. I think you need to do that more online because so many people have received unsolicited pitches all day long, which actually serves to your advantage. Because when everyone on Instagram's like trying to sell you 1 million Instagram followers, everyone on LinkedIn's trying to sell you leads, like when this is happening all day long, just imagine a bunch of poop, a room full of poop, and you get to be the pony. There's a room for a poop, and you get to be the pony. When everyone's pitching, I'm just like, hey, Brett, for example, Mark Schaefer is one of the top thought leaders on content marketing and community building, really in the world. And he was speaking at one of my private events. It's a paid only community called Grow Getters Only. He was a guest speaker. What I did, because I like to open up those, it's an Ask Me Anything. Mark's a big name. I want to have an audience for them. I like to open it up to guests. So what I did is I went to Mark's profile and I skimmed through and I saw who was leaving insightful comments on his posts. They they know Mark. They're there coming up multiple times. They're leaving insightful comments on his posts. So I actually added these complete strangers. We both know Mark. Complete strangers, and literally I pitch slapped them, but in a way that was valuable. I said, "Hey, a friend of Mark Schaefer is a friend of mine. He's doing a private Ask Me Anything at my exclusive group, looking to bring on guests. Would you like to be my guest?" And if they replied, I'd be like, "Hey, man, all I need is your email. I'll never use it again, but I can add you to the calendar invite." So I started reaching out to strangers, but with a huge amount of value. Hey,
Yeah.
come to a private group that people pay to be, and you can be there and ask a question to one of your mentors. It's this is just an example. But when everybody's sending bull crap messages, I got to be the pony. And even if you don't have this incredible opportunity, you can still just start a conversation. You can still just, and again, all the stuff you would do in person is the kind of stuff you want to do online. If it doesn't pass, if I wouldn't look Brett in the eyes and say this long-winded random pitch even though he's a total stranger, what would I do? I would extend my hand, I would shake his hand. Maybe if I'm a hugger, I'd give him a hug. I'd look him in the eyes and say, "Hey, great to meet you." Like, if you wouldn't do it in person, why are you doing it online? That's my perspective. So
Yeah.
people are more conservative online, should be more conservative online, but because so many people do it wrong, if you do it authentically, you're actually going to stand out from all the people that are just spraying and praying with everyone they speak to.
Yeah, it's a good point for sure. It's a far easier way. I know. So I got my start essentially in affiliate marketing, and I didn't have any connections. I didn't know anybody in the business. I was trying to make info products, and I was trying to sell them. There weren't even a lot of affiliate platforms when I started, and the one or two that were out there, I said to myself, how am I going to get to know these people? And the challenge, and now it's far worse, but the challenge is that anybody that wanted to get somebody to promote for you as an affiliate, they're getting bombarded with messages. Hey, I got this great product. Will you promote it? Will you? And I said, you know what? The best way to do this is just to approach them and establish a relationship. Talk to them about their product. Talk to them about maybe something I could do. Create a guide, create an extra walkthrough video or a review that they can post. So it adds value to their business, to their audience, and establish a relationship. Then at a minimum, they might not, turn right around and say, "Hey, you got something I can promote," but they're going to know who I am and they're going to remember my name. And when they see all these other guys that are, they just delete those messages. And so you're putting a ton of effort in for very little return, and all you're doing is irritating people. Whereas if you're providing value, a lot of people will resonate with that and feel, at a minimum, they'll make note of it. They may not respond right away. They might not say anything. They might not engage with you right away, but they will make note of it. And the more that you do that, the more they'll start to realize, wow, maybe this is somebody I want to get to know. So um, I think that's very good advice. So let's talk about podcasts. You're currently running 5 shows. What made you get into podcasting to start with, other than your fear of public speaking?
I need to humble myself, so I literally have in my calendar fix my bio because technically there's 6 or 7 segments, but they're no longer full shows. I got like
Okay.
drunk with excitement, and this is the short version on that. Um, I had a Rochester, New York business podcast. It's where I'm born and raised. That's how I started. Then I introduced an international segment. Then I introduced a 15-minute segment. Then I introduced a solo segment. Then I introduced panel discussions. Then I introduced Ask Me Anythings. And I just started I started to add all these different shows within the same network. But as of this year, we're actually only producing 1 episode a week. So when I say 5 shows, 6, 7 shows, it's actually not that cool. But really, what it is it's different breadcrumbs on different topics in different formats because I don't know exactly what the listener needs. So I
Mhm.
give them a buffet style. And you had asked this, I started during the pandemic with a Rochester, New York business podcast because I was in Rochester, New York. I was starting a business. I called it Rochester Business Connections because on LinkedIn, a friend request was called a connection request. And
Right.
connections, I needed some. I actually have some interviews, and still to this day, like no one interview is perfect. People ask me like questions on how to connect, and at the very starting age, I would just make stuff up on the spot because I didn't know how to connect. I didn't come in with the word connections as an expert. I wanted to learn. I wanted to learn how to network. I wanted to make connections. I wanted to build a team, a tribe, an army. And the podcast was my way of learning how to do that.
It's awesome. So how can entrepreneurs leverage podcasts to grow their influence?
Yeah. Yikes. I almost feel like every one of these segments we could do a whole freaking presentation on if we wanted
I
to.
know, I know, they're all deep, but
I'll simplify this, and if someone it has a pen or paper, or honestly, this is so darn simple, I'm sure you can take a mental note. I like to divide 3 categories: plus, minus, and equals. A plus is a mentor. They could be someone, a coach you're paying. A plus is someone you're learning from. A minus is a mentee. They could be your audience. They could be someone spending money with you. And an equals is a peer. They could be someone who you don't spend any money together, but your referral partners, adjacent industries, similar interests, sharing ideas, collaboration, not competition. So plus is a mentor, minus is audience, client, or mentee, equals is a peer. You can create an ecosystem that serves all 3 of those people. So you start a podcast, you bring on mentors because a lot of them charge hundreds, if not thousands of dollars per hour for their time, and you can get free mentorship simultaneously while building an audience because you're not just getting it yourself, you're distributing it for all the listeners, all the audience that needs it. In doing so, you're building a personal brand and thought leadership yourself. So you're becoming someone's mentor in your thought leadership. And then the one thing that I think's missed is bringing on peers. A simple example, I used to work with a lot of contractors. If I'm a roofer, I want to know someone who does curb appeal. If I'm a remodeler, I want to know someone who does landscaping. If I do siding, I want to know a roofer. If I do solar, I probably own a roofing company as well. If you find ways to partner with collaborators, if I'm in finance, if I'm an advisor, I want a CPA, I want an insurance agent. If I'm a real estate agent, I want a mortgage broker. If you can create ecosystem of peers, they're the ones that are going to pay you the most money. They're not going to pay it through their pocket. They're just going to pay it through the relationship you build. So you start a podcast. Nobody does it this way. So if you do it this way, you'll be more successful. You start a podcast with clarity on who your plus, minus, and equals are before you even click record. Then you know who to bring on, who you're speaking to, and you understand why you're doing it, because you might never make a dime on the podcast itself, but you will make money on free consulting, becoming a thought leader, and building strategic relationships. So if you start thinking it as a business opportunity versus just like, I want to be the next Joe Rogan, you're going to have greater success. And that's how I would start. I kind of accidentally did some of this, Brett, but if I started from scratch, I literally would do that from day one.
Yeah, that's great. I like that approach a lot, and I think it is important. A lot of people want to chase what they see again, image wise, in terms of podcasts. But, if you're a celebrity, you have a built-in audience before you even start. So you can't really compare yourself to people in that space. You have to decide what your assets are, what your strengths are, and what your interests are. So you can go where that is and you can connect with people that you're fascinated to learn from and that you'll be able to share that information. And I do think podcasts serve a lot of really valuable needs. Um, so where can people find you? Do you have any products or services, or where can people connect with you?
I mean, I have products and services. We joked about this prior, Brett. This is Brett's show. This is optYOUmize podcast. This isn't my podcast. So it is possible. I did share this on social media. It's all about loving. It's a collaboration, right? So I'm sure some of my listeners came here, but the people that are subscribed to your show, Brett, they're subscribed to your show because of you and your guests, not me. I'm the guest here. So if you're subscribed and you haven't hit 5 stars, do that. If you want bonus points, you can leave a comment. If you're not subscribed and this is a beneficial show, getting organic subscribers and momentum will help Brett create a better show. So subscribe to this stuff. And then again, we joked beforehand, Brett. I have a podcast called Real Business Connections. Someone can type in the words Real Business Connections wherever they found this, or if I failed you, just Google it. But I would urge people to show some love to Brett prior and maybe send us a DM. I'm giving way too many bonus points here, but that's what you should do when you're listening to a podcast. Subscribe to it. Take a moment to leave a review. And if you want to get someone's attention, send them a direct message with your top takeaway. And I know you didn't ask me this, but I'm on a rant here. One of the best ways I built my network, Brett, is I consumed a lot of podcasts, and every time I did, I would reach out to the host and the guest. I wouldn't reach out to the host every single time because that would be overwhelming, but if it was a new host, and guest. So every time I consumed 10, 15, 30, 60 minutes of content, I would take 45 seconds to let the creator know that they're appreciated. And it's a whole nother podcast. The relationships I've built just through 45-second gratitude messages to random ass people has literally built my business. So
That's awesome. Great advice too. So
that's another
perfect. Thanks for
podcast,
that.
my friend.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, I have one last question to ask because I think it's important, and I'm always interested to hear everyone's unique perspective. And that is, what's your number one tip for success as a business owner or an entrepreneur?
The number one tip for it's so funny because the first thing that comes to mind, and I do believe this, is you need to outlast. Like my number one tip is outlast, like long time horizon. like you need to have patience. But the reason I also don't like that tip entirely is you need to simultaneously be impatient. You need to be really impatient with the amount you do, but you need to be very patient with the amount you receive. So be really impatient with your input into the business, the amount you do, the amount that you try to do the best you can, but you have to be tremendously patient with the amount that comes back to you. Because the best business professionals, the richest business, and not everyone wants to be rich, but Bezos and Musk and none of these guys freaking did it overnight. A
Yeah.
lot of them had a ton of competition. They outworked and they outlasted. So find your version of outworking and outlast. Outwork someone in the short term and outlast them in the long term, and you will have success because even if you fail at a specific endeavor, you will develop the skills required of you to succeed at a new endeavor.
Yes. That's great advice. Perfect. Thanks. Okay. With that, it's just about time to wrap things up. I want to thank you again, Ben, so much for sharing all your tips and insights with us. Thanks for tuning in, everybody. And remember, no matter what you want from your business and your life, don't compromise, optimize.